Hello. Thanks for coming, y'all. This is really cool. I'm really excited about this. My name is Aneesa Shami. I'm an artist, educator, and researcher. And the great part about sharing this with you at Helms Design Center is my studio's up the street, so it's very convenient for me. I was born and raised in Kansas City, and I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, graduated in 2015 with a BFA double major in fiber and art history. It was so much fun. I highly recommend it if you want to, go for it. So I chose to major in fiber mostly because I really enjoy process-based ways of making, and I really love learning new techniques. So the department offered both of these things for me. And another perk of working in the textile department is they would receive a lot of dead stock. So the weaving room had a whole rainbow wall of cone yarn, which was fantastic as a student because nobody really has a lot of money to spend on material, right? So I found myself drawn to the things that were already in my area and all of the dead stock that would be brought to the school. So this led to a natural rhythm of creating, collecting the materials, thinking about it, living with it, and then creating a project from what I'd collected. So like I said, collecting is an important part of my practice, like a lot of artists, and fiber material does speak to me the most. I really love repurposing fabric samples. Old books and magazines are definite, and old garments. The color palette that I work with tends to be what's in front of me with each collection, and since I am a maximalist, I really enjoy mixing everything together, so I have a lot of colorful work. And most of the materials I collect are gifted to me from fellow textile and fiber artists, which is great because I can use their I can recycle their cast-offs, or I can incorporate their scraps or what they bought and wanted to use and didn't end up using in my own work, which I think is really special. All of my materials have found their way to me through different routes, and I don't have a particular warehouse or store I continually source from, so my stock changes based on what people don't want, what people want to let go of, what they think is trash. If I'm in a dry spell waiting for someone to drop off a donation, then I often go to Craigslist and browse all of their ads. I've gotten lots of yarn stashes from them. This is one of them. So this was taken during my residency here in Helms over in Studio B right over here. And the light hit the table just right, so I had to take a photo. But this is $30 worth of Craigslist yarn. Okay, that's like 5 trash bags filled my little VW Golf in. So it was a great day. So I'll go to Craigslist, or I'll wander through Remainders, which is in Pasadena, and if you don't know it, it's a secondhand craft material and items store. So there's a lot of yarn and fabric, which I'm super into, but also notions like buttons. There's sewing how-to books. There's used sewing machines. It's a really great resource. I like to go there just for inspiration too. Remainders, Remainders. Mm-hmm. Definitely visit. They also take donations, so anyway. Yes, so again, I don't normally have the same thing coming to me twice. I do have several people who give me the same type of thing, so like I'll have someone who gives me yarn primarily, but it's not necessarily the same yarn every time, which also means each stash or each collection has its own acquisition history, which I also love. It embeds another layer of meaning and a certain charm to each piece that I find. So recently I've been working with industrially printed fabric samples, pictured here, from a local design firm, and a fellow artist works at the design firm. She collects all the samples that have been looked over, put notes on, cut up, rubbed on, whatever they do with the samples. And she brings several bags to me every quarter or so. So if she didn't collect these, the fabric samples would probably end up in a landfill, which is not good. The firm really has no use for them after they've decided what they need visually from it, right? Which material to use, how much color, what tone, what pattern looks good, that type of a thing. So it's mostly polyester and commercial grade fabric, so it's not the nicest, but it's also really heavy duty and it's not gonna fade. The colors are super bright. I've really enjoyed working with it so far. And since they are samples, the swatches range in size, right? So some of them are the size of my hand, right? They're not very big. Some of them, there's yardage, which is kind of funny for me. Sorting through it and, collecting all of it. So once I have a new material, organizing it is a really necessary and primary step for me before I start a project. Most of the time, all of this comes to me in black trash bags or bins, and I don't normally see the whole picture of what I receive, unless I'm shopping for it, obviously. But if someone's donating it, then I'm not quite sure what everything looks like. So I take it all out. I visually take inventory of what I have received, and I normally create piles based on texture, fiber content, color, tone sometimes, size, and with this industrial fabric that you see here that I was just talking about, I typically sort it into patterns because there's a lot of different tests on different types of weave structures. There's like different levels of color going on. So I found that collecting them and putting them into pattern piles has helped me intuitively draw from them and create the imagery that I'm looking for. Most of my practice focuses on capturing the chaos of one's subconscious, right? So I have to have a structure. I really like having a structure, I should say, a structured way of working so that I can draw from what's around me and I don't have to think too much about it. I can just be intuitively drawn to what's included in my palette. In addition to sourcing material for projects, I also love to gather information from books and imagery from texts that I'm reading, and I find that surrounding myself with both material and the information sparks a lot of really great inspiration for future projects. Currently, I am reading Islam, Arabs, and the Intelligent World of the Jinn by Amira El-Zain, which has recently influenced my work tremendously. You'll see in a second. So I started collecting the industrial fabric samples around the same time I made my first trip to Lebanon, which is where my father's family lives, and meeting them for the first time in person was magical. So the new material that had just arrived to my studio mixed with these fresh images of the Mediterranean Sea, eating my tata's cooking, seeing family, walking through history, definitely led my work in a different direction than it had been previously. And connecting through WhatsApp or Instagram with my cousins has been really inspirational as well. I'm able to ask questions I've never had answers to before, like, how is it growing up in Lebanon, right? Because they're all about my age, and I grew up in the States. So all of this, the book, the fabric, talking to my cousins, the trip, all led to the first body of work with the industrial fabric, which I'm calling Something Sacred. So these are 3 out of 7 total pieces in the series. They're all about 18 by 20 inches, so smaller than what's on the screen right here. So it's exciting for me to show these images because I've treated the fabric in a similar way to how I've used old magazines and books and paper in collage and had never really branched out into fabric. So this has been a really fun journey for me. Each piece combines the memories of my visit with Islamic folklore to create abstracted landscapes. And so many of them include sites that we visited. One on the left is called Baba's Gold Mine. This one shows the Baalbek ruins, which are Roman temples in like the Fertile Crescent of Lebanon. The center one is Iblis Illusion, which shows the Citadel of Tripoli, which is where my family lives. And it was built during the Crusades era in 1103 CE. And the far one is On Prayer, which also depicts the citadel, probably from the same era. So this is a close-up of On Prayer, which is the one we were just looking at. And you can kind of see specific elements coming together to create the composition. Like the far right, you can see the half moon shapes cut out of the white fabric. That's a scrap that I had set aside after cutting the initial shapes out for a different project. So in addition to having the organized pattern fabric, I'll save all of the scraps, keep them over here. Sometimes I'll reorganize them, who knows, it turns into a mess sometimes. You know how it is when you're working. And so I'll pull from the scraps, I'll pull from the fresh stuff, and I'll put them together to make these compositions. So nothing really gets thrown away, everything gets saved, which I'm really proud of. I do my best not to throw anything away. Everything can be put into something, later on. So this method of acquiring, sorting, creating, and saving has definitely defined my practice, and it drives my creativity forward. This structured way of working I developed in undergrad has evolved a lot over the last few years, and I'm sure it'll keep evolving. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Thanks for listening.